Okay, hi, and welcome to everyone that's listening out there and to the fantastic ladies I have with me here. So today's session, we're going to be talking a little bit about how do organizations attract and retain the next generation talent and in the new normal. So the new normal being during COVID and post-COVID. So I will start by introducing myself and then hand over to the ladies here. So my name is Mitu Singh, and I work as a management consultant at Ernst & Young. And I work with helping clients solve different kind of issues and become more efficient, always with an IT and tech component. And I work with a lot of different industries. And I also really like working with the people question and what makes people happy at work. So I hand over to you, Helena, to give a short introduction.
Thank you, Mitu. My name is Helena Törnqvist. I work together with Mitu at EY, and I work with the technology, risk questions, and how we can support our clients in the transformation they are ongoing right now and in the future. I work a lot with tech and telcos. And in addition to working with clients, I also have a responsibility for our people and talent questions within our Nordic consulting business.
Great. Thank you, Helena. Lasian, hand over to you.
Thanks. Hi, everyone. My name is Lasian, and I'm a part of the HR and talent team at Spotify, and I'm currently supporting all of EMEA and Americas. And I work on projects such as leadership and dynamic workplace and those things. Pleasure to be here.
Thank you, Lasian. Eva?
Yes, I agree. Pleasure to be here. My name is Eva Fiskare. I'm working at Sinch and I'm heading up people development, which is, I can just copy what you said, Mitu, what makes people happy at work so people can focus on their other day-to-day business. So I'm working with culture, leadership, diversity and inclusion, and well, people development in general.
Great, thank you. So as we move past the landmark year that 2020 has been, it's super interesting to see both how organizations plan to attract and retain talent, but also specifically focusing on the next generation, which is also called Generation Z. So I will share a little picture with you all just to show who are we talking about when we're talking about Generation Z. So here you see a picture that shows from the left side, you see next gen, which are kids that are up to 9 years, and then we have Generation Z, which are people that are between 10 and 24, and then you have the rest on the right side. So basically, Generation Z, it's as you can see, it's 1.8 billion of the world's population. So it's a really large part of the world's population. So this is what we're going to be focusing on with the discussion that we have now. So when you look at Generation Z, they're born into a world of technology, which makes them really tech savvy. And they also tend to be very competitive and career driven. And they place a lot of importance on diversity and inclusion initiatives. And while looking at, like, as we know, COVID has impacted all of our lives, but it's hit extra hard on Generation Z. And that's because it took place in their formative years, and that's why a lot of research shows that it's going to shape their perspectives and expectation towards their future employers. And the challenge for employers then is how do you respond to this? So I'm actually going to hand over a question to you, Eva, and that's like how are you thinking on attracting, in terms of attracting Generation Z? Do you have any specific thoughts on this specific generation?
Thank you, Mitu. Well, so I think one thing first, well, we're talking about women in technology and we're talking about diversity and inclusion. We, of course, want to be inclusive also when it comes to age. So we don't see that we in specific tailor our employer brand or what we offer towards a specific age group. So I think that's just one thing. However, with that said, with what you already mentioned now, what we can see that people tend to like and how we can match that with our offer. Sinch is a software company within cloud communication, and we are very much of a scale up, I would say, that offers a lot of impact, influence, which also offers a lot of development opportunities. And I think that's where we can link it quite well. Then coming back to the age thing, we require that our employees wants to have that impact, wants to influence and challenge status quo, no matter how old or young they are. But I think that is a quite good link to when we're talking about Generation Z, that if people want to impact, influence, have those development opportunities, that's where we can be a good match.
Yeah, that's really interesting. And one of the things that is said about Generation Z is actually that they want to connect the work that they do with their interests. So that's really interesting to hear you say that. Lassian, how are you guys thinking over at Spotify around this?
I agree with Eva, and it's very interesting points. But I also do think that for this generation, work-life balance and the focus on the physical and mental health will be really important. And that will be in addition to being a part of a mission-driven company and a workplace that cares about social issues, as you mentioned. And I think if you start with work-life balance, I think we can just all agree that the whole concept of having, different sides, that you have a professional side, a private side, that's a very outdated concept even for millennials or the other generations too. These lines are blurred and certain concept will just not work because, saying something like work-life balance, it indicates that you separate your life from work whilst it's a part of your life. And today it's actually in our homes with COVID. So I think companies need to find ways to support the workforce to be able to spend time with their family, like you said, spend more time on their interests and other aspects of their life, but also allow employees to feel that they can bring their authentic selves to work. And that, like with that said, it depends on where work is. Like, is it in the home or is it in a physical office? So I think that part will be really important, as well as I mentioned, with mental health, physical health, for instance, having like mental health days, employee assistance programs, and all of the above.
Yeah, definitely. And especially coming to, you mentioned like having a physical workplace to go to. And previously, a lot of companies, they like a lot of the attraction points are like nice offices and central locations where you can have lunch at fancy and nice places. But I think this will become less of a differentiator moving forward because if the world moves towards more and more people working from home, then the working environment is probably going to look more similar among different companies. And I know that you guys have just launched Work from Anywhere. Lassen, could you tell us a little bit more about how you're thinking with that?
Yeah, I mean, so that project has actually been going on for a very long time. I know a lot of people think that COVID hit, then we just rolled it out, but that's not the reality. We were thinking about distributed working for a long time, and COVID kind of helped accelerate that. But the reality is that even when you remove those things as nice offices and great locations, there is still kind of something that is a tangible work environment, and that will make you show up to work. And you can argue it's culture, it's values, but in that you'll find, I think, two parts, and one is how we work, and the other one is the work environment. So even if with Work from Anywhere, we have redone our offices to support those that want to come into the office. But I think the basics of the work environment would be to have up-to-date technology. And I think it's fundamental as having a desk or a laptop pre-COVID. And this goes beyond like tools like how you would allow your teams to be collaborative or productive at work. But I think companies also need to find a way to utilize technology to also onboard their new employees and for them to feel a part of a mission, a culture, a company without ever stepping foot into an office. I think that will be a challenge. And this is a challenge that a lot of companies actually have dealt with. Companies need to create the necessary means for everyone to deliver, but also to feel valued at work. And I think it's about finding new ways of working and not trying to take old ways of working online. So that I think is like the baseline. But the differentiator, like if we look beyond the basics, I think that the differentiators would be a couple of things. It will be belonging, it will be community, but it will also be like, am I part of a mission-driven company? Like those things will matter. They will ask themselves, can I stand with this company I'm working for? It's not only like, am I proud of the service or the product that we produce, but also, do I believe in what we're doing? Does my employer support social causes? What are those? Are they in line with my own values? Because that line, again, between your professional and private self is blurred or kind of non-existing.
definitely. So Helena, interesting to hear. Do you have any thoughts on how it is in the consulting business?
Yes, and I think there are lots of similarities regardless of what business it is, at least as long as you have an office work that you could say that you can be flexible of where you work. And in the consulting business, we have been on the move quite a lot, even before. It has not been that we have needed to sit as a desk somewhere. We work with our clients, but it has mainly been clients and at the office. Now we will have a totally new setup and in a new environment. We can work from home, maybe from somewhere else. But I think, just like you said, Lassian, it will be really important that we have the right technology for the people to do that, so they feel it's up to date, that we don't continue with our old physical parts and move them to online or virtually, but also that we agree in different teams and cohorts and however we work, how do we work together? And it's not only a management thing, it's a management thing to allow and give the different groups the possibility to decide on that and agree depending on what tasks, what are we going to do, what needs do those individuals have. So I think we need to create cultures and an atmosphere where we create self-awareness of what I need, but we as a company need, and how can we do that together? So some kind of peer accountability as well, not only put accountability from top to down. We need to lead ourselves as individuals, but also as teams. I think, and if we can show that, we can be more attractive as employers as well, more than the fancy office, even if I still think that the office will be really important. We see that right now, that people need a place where they actually can meet, get the social interaction, not sit in front of the screen. But some people want to sit in front of the screen. So again, where are we there? And together with the purpose. What is the purpose and how can people contribute to the purpose and connect it with their own purpose? So I think to take that further, and we actually launched a new leadership model before COVID that starts with my own purpose in the center. And I think that is important to actually develop and explore now. And it has been accelerated via COVID, I think. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, definitely. And I'm just reflecting on myself. I mean, I would much rather have this session physically.
Yeah.
I mean, it's nice to have the flexibility with being at home, and you can maybe get more stuff done at home, but it's you miss the social factor of it. And that, I think that does a lot. I think I didn't think it was that important before, or I didn't ever, like, it's not something you think of if you have it. But when you don't have it, you definitely think like, oh, okay, it does make a lot of difference. That you can look at people into the eyes, and like those small things, I think make a lot of difference. But Lassian, so when you have launched this initiative, what has been the response among Spotify employees?
I mean, the digital will, like, of course, never replace the human element. But I think what we saw during COVID, I think it's important to know that we as an organization, like, I've relocated so many people to Stockholm, I relocate people to New York, we relocate all over. And I think, like, there is an aspect of diversity inclusion that we need to lift with this, because what you really are doing is you're kind of evening out the play field. Because when you're relocating people, more often than not, someone has to choose whether or not they would be okay with bringing their partner, and then partner might not be able to work in the first period of time, or if you have children. So it doesn't include anyone. And to, like, you know, Eva's point, when we're rolling things out, we look at all ages and all situations and all type of family constellations that people have. So there are, I mean, the response has been, it depends on who you ask. Some people are like, oh no, don't take my office away. Some people are afraid of, like, but how will we collaborate? What will that look like? So it is, again, about, like, that project has been so massive. So we haven't only looked at, like, will we be at an office or not, but also, like, can we support learning and development? Can we, like, find other ways so that we still have that human element and connectivity?
No, that the human element is definitely important, especially when you mentioned like sense of belonging before, like both sense of belonging and how do you make people, even like onboarding, how do you onboard people in a more digital environment? Because a lot of, I remember like my first days at EY, there was a lot of like physical things, like at the office together with other new joiners, and you do like a lot of like even the after works, and all of those elements are really, really it's very important elements. So when it comes to onboarding in a digital setting, and the sense of belonging, Helena, do you have any? What are you thinking there from an EY perspective? How will we be doing this moving forward?
I think from an EY perspective, when we onboard, when we want people to start working at EY, when people start, we want them to feel engaged. I think that's what we spoke about before. We want them to feel that they can contribute with something, but to do that, you also need to feel trust with the people in the group that you work with. So for me, it's a lot about how can we create that kind of trust and connection and glue between people when you don't meet like we did when you started, for example, Mito. And I think that is around communication. And I think it's about creating opportunities for interaction with people, both the formal part. Usually it's quite easy to do some trainings and you could do some information, but how can we then take the informal parts? So I think it's really important that we inform the rest of the people who will work with the ones who are recently hired to actually get they get the buddy, but also to create some virtual setups. It could be speed dating, it could be afterworks, it could be walk and talks, whatever it is. But we don't only look at it from the formal structures, but also informally. So you actually can get to know the people, because it's what we spoke about earlier. We are persons, we are individuals, and we need to get to know each other as individuals. Then it's easy as a newcomer to reach out and ask questions. How do you do that if you don't know who the other person is? And so I think to create those both formal and informal ways of communicating, and then be active in feedback. So, and that does not have to be formal feedback either, but to come back, give feedback and ask for feedback. So it goes in both ways, so the individuals feel included, and have a plan for that. I think you can have a plan and then you can change the plan, but at least as long as you have a plan, and different people are assigned responsibilities to support in the onboarding process. It's not an HR process, it's a process that everybody should be involved in, who should work together. I think that's, and I think we can focus even more on it, and we need to do it in an even different way in the future.
Definitely. And just comparing size-wise, EY and Cinch, for example, EY were a lot of people everywhere globally, and you guys are more of a scale-up. How are you guys thinking about that?
Yeah, I was just thinking about that. I don't know the exact number of EY, but if I just look at Cinch, with 2,000 people in 40 plus countries, so that means we don't have such a big, group of people in a specific, country or city. So we did, or actually, when I started a year ago, when we set up the global onboarding we have today, that was already decided to do that virtual. That was not a COVID decision, because that's how we connect Cinchers already from start. So we didn't have to change a face-to-face event to a virtual one. And now we're always trying to look. Of course, it was still a change, because I can't, no one can deny that. And for all the bigger countries, like we have, Sweden is our biggest country, then we have India, Brazil, and US. It's of course a big difference for them. I'm based in Stockholm myself, and for all the people in the Stockholm office, it's of course a big difference to sit in front of a screen all of the day, instead of being in the office and having fikas, breakfasts, and what have you. But if you're coming back to what both of you said earlier, Lassian and Helena, to not just translate the face-to-face concept to the similar one virtual, but to look into formats that actually works. we have done a few things. We did, for example, we set our new values during the autumn, and intention was to do face-to-face workshops in all of the offices we have, but obviously we couldn't do that, and then we translated it and did a virtual workshop. So we had 800 Cinchers, because we were fewer at that time, engaged in workshops via Zoom, which connected people from Australia, New Zealand, India to Brazil, West Coast US, and so on. Those people would never have met otherwise. So there is a big possibility there, even though, coming back to also what you said earlier, some people love to be in the office, and we should for sure allow that. We will not remove offices, but we need to be flexible, of course, and target or tailor around what people want and need.
Yeah, definitely. I totally agree. And I think on your point that you said that you connect people that normally maybe would never have met, I think that's something that I've noticed myself during the past year, that there's a lot of people that normally you would maybe have a phone call with them, but now you have a video call instead. So you see people so that's actually something that I also think is positive, even though it's I'm one of those who prefer it's nice to sit in the office and actually go to the coffee, go have coffee or tea or whatever. But
it can be both.
Yes, yes. You can have a combination of both, definitely. So what I'm thinking is there's a lot of you guys have said a lot of good things, and I think one thing, Lassia, that you said that really stuck with me is you said that work-life balance means that you separate what you work with and what you like, which there essentially shouldn't be a difference between that. I mean, you should work with what you like. So I think then you're not as set on, okay, now it's 5 o'clock or 5:01, and now I really have to shut down my computer. If you love what you do, then you won't have that feeling. So I think that's actually really important to actually, for organizations, to attract people that actually want to work with what they're offering, and also what you said, that it's that you feel that is the mission of this company. Is that something I believe in, and do I believe in what I'm doing? I think that's really important as well. And both talking about, it's not only Generation Z, I would also say it's other generations. I mean, even Generation X and Y, and even the new gen, the kids, they're up to 9 years old, I think. I don't know how they will be when they grow up, but I'm assuming they will also be more purpose driven and more want to have more of a match between what they like and what they want to work with.
But they might also have better self-leadership from start. What you talked about, Helena, earlier on, that we need to train ourselves a little bit on setting boundaries. For example, being in a global company with all the time zones there is, you can always work if you want to do that. But of course, then you need to set it for yourself. And if you work in Sweden, we have quite strict labor laws that it's actually, those are a bit traditional in the way they're set up, which requires a little bit more from us as employees, and of course also, like you said, Helena, from leaders and HR as enabler and other functions. And that is something that I think will be more natural going on. Now it's this shift that requires a little bit more from us being in the shift. Then it will not be a new normal. It will be the regular normal.
Yeah, I think so too, and especially for people who are not in the Generation Z, who are the next kind of, or maybe the ones that are 15, 16 right now. For them, this will be normal, as you say. This won't be something that's because they've never seen how it was before COVID or how it was working before COVID. So.
And that's just looking back to 1 year ago, when everyone was going, at least in Europe, going home working. We don't at all have the same discussions now. That's just a year. At that time, people were saying, "Yeah, it's actually working quite well with videos." Yeah, what a shocker! No one is having those same discussions now.
No, not at all. No, and it's as you say, people were saying it's working well. I think now, I that comment is not going to be something people say now. It's but I think as you all said, that it's important with a mix and important to find what works for each team and each individual, because people have different situations at home. I mean, you might have small kids running around, and it might be nice to go into the office. And I think that's what's important moving forward, as you've all said, that finding the right the right way for different teams and how you connect with your peers. I think that's really, really important. I see here that time is about to run out. We have 1 more minute. So I just wanted to say before we leave, so firstly, there is going to be a Q&A session just after this session. And so just on the right side of the screen should be a button which says session discussion. And if you click there, then you will end up on the Q&A session. I'll thank you very much. Fantastic discussions and really fun to have you all here. And I'll see you on the other side in the Q&A session.
See you in the Q&A.
See you in the Q&A. Bye bye.
Bye bye.